Into the meat of the program this afternoon. I'm hearing some breaking news in the Dave Wash area. I will make a link before we introduce our guests. Dominic, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the Talk on the Block. We have some special guests this afternoon to speak to Debash Saga. And interestingly, and not planned, Mr. Nasir Fontaine and others are now at the site where something interesting took place a few minutes ago. And we have Dr. IP, one of those who's standing on the line to explain to us just what is going on there as we speak. Dr. IP, bring us up to date as to what is taking place at Dave Wash as we speak.
Well, how are you? And good afternoon to your audience. And, well, it's interesting, we've been standing, monitoring things at Dave Wash for the last, 6-7 weeks now. And this morning, interestingly, around 15 minutes after we arrived, what they call that, excavator, the huge excavator was brought up on the truck for the premises. And, interestingly, Nasio decided, he wasn't going to go inside, so he stood in the entrance, blocking the way, and until the driver of the carrier of that excavator reversed the vehicle, so the vehicle didn't actually get into the area of the mining at Dave Wash and was parked on the road. And it was then subsequently parked on the road. There were lots of, frenzy back and forth and telephone calls. And but since then, I'm actually not there right now. I'll be back in a little while, so I'll give you an update when I get back. And so that's it. That's the status of it. That happened around an hour and a half ago.
So Nasir Fontaine and some other guy, I was told, stood in front of the big truck, preventing the mission from coming through.
Yeah, Nasir and David Chagall.
David Chagall.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So, so that's it. That's the status of things. I'll be back there shortly. So as soon as I get there, I will give you an update. I don't think anything has happened since I left half an hour ago. So I will keep you posted.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. IP. As you just heard, Nasio Fontaine, the reggae superstar. He's been there for the past few weeks, standing for Debranche. Actually thought there was a halt there. Something may have changed. I think Maslin Edwards, who's actually visiting for a few days, actually saw what was going on, and she may still be at the site. Maslin, bring us up to date. Maslin, of course, visiting from the diaspora. What is going on?
Well, Matt, yes, I want to say greetings to all Dominicans, and I'm glad I am on the land, and glad that I can stand with the patriotic brothers, the soldiers, standing in their bush, standing first, and driving through this morning, into the country. Countryside. I saw the police, and I saw David and Nasio and his wife standing. So I decided to stop, and once I stopped, pulled up. Then I asked what was going on, and then they said that the Chinese were bringing in a big equipment. I think it's an excavator or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
They were bringing it in on the site, and Nasio and David stood in the way, and they said, "Well, no way, this is not going to happen here today." And from what it is, I spoke to the police officer, asked him, "Well, what is going on?" And from the police, because they know that there was a stop order for work to stop, but they have no information as to whether that stop order was lifted for work to resume. So. The standoff is still here. The truck is still by the road. The equipment is still by the road, and I am still here standing. And
how many?
I don't know what's the move. What is going to?
How many people? Yeah. How many people are at the site as we speak, standing? A few people.
It's just a few people. One guy stopped. He just moved up a minute ago. But it's the two police officers and Nasio, his wife, David, and myself who were there.
But would you be able to pass that phone to Nasio quickly there? Because I need to ask him why he decided to stand in front of that machine this morning. That's a bold move.
Yes, of course, definitely it is. And I really applaud them for that this morning, standing in front of that machine and saying, "No way, you're not going in here today." And Matt, one more thing, there's a stop no entry, which is there. Okay. I think they put it there for themselves and not for other people, because they need to stop that damn thing that is going on in this mountain here. You cannot excavate our whole country because you stay your building on the airport. That is madness. Anyway, I'm going to pass you on to Nasio Fountain.
Yes, I would appreciate that. I would appreciate it.
Yes, greetings, Matt.
Greetings, brother. How you doing, man?
Well, we up there washing off facing what we must face for the country. Well, we came here this morning, and we saw them and come with a big yellow Chinese crane truck, and we just had to stand up in front of it and prevent it from going in. And this is the beginning. I've told them before, you can crucify me if you want to, but we're going to defy it. So we are waiting. The police came. The police is here with us, keeping us company too. We are grateful for their mannerisms with us. Yep. And their honesty with us. And we are here. We are here. We will be here as long as it takes, because no blood-clad foreigner will come from where you come from. We don't care where you come from. to rule and regulation and want to divide and destroy our country, and we will just take it like this. No, we will stand. And if I should die here on that big vehicle and they should crush me, don't feel no way for me, my brother. Tell the world, just keep on fighting because everything blessed.
But Nasio, some people might describe it as a bold move. You're standing for your country.
Well, my brother, we have no choice, you know. It's like you mat at home and you seen a big lion come outside. Even though you know the lion is capable of eating you, but you will have to go stand up to defend your wife and children outside.
Mm-hmm.
So, my brother, this is a reality. We have to stand for the country. We have to do all the things we have to do. We don't care what MMC and CR5, the Chinese and Dominica government say. We don't give a fuck, brother. Sorry. We don't give a shit. We will fight for this country. Just like Cool Joe and Mapi and Congore and everybody fight for it. We will stand and fight for it. We will not forsake her. We are asking for Dominicans to come up to the branch and stand up and let your person be seen and let your voice be heard. Because this is the destruction of the country. We cannot allow them to do that to us. We don't care if you're red like blood or if you're blue like the sea. We are saying there is no bipartisan here. We are standing for a country.
All right, Nasio, we will join you sometime very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you for standing.
Matt, my brother.
Yes, I.
You need, to come and take and invite the people to come up here too,
Yes, I.
You need to come up,
Yes, all right.
That's not a blood clot joke, a serious business that,
Uh-huh. I understand. I was there before. I'll come again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yes.
A serious Nasio Fontaine. Oh my God. Standing in front of this big machine. That's the breaking news. Superstar reggae sensation have decided to stand for this country. The only place I've seen that happen is in China, One guy standing in front of a machine. We'll, of course, commence our program with our experts in a minute. I know Dr. Professor Simon is standing by. Hello, talk to me. Yes, good morning. Good afternoon.
Matt?
Yes.
You mean Brave Nasio?
Yes.
Stand in front of the machine?
Yep.
Wow, that is something else. Well, he prepare for anything, eh?
Yep. He says he doesn't mind to die for his country for what he believes.
Yeah, Lord. Some nights get long. Some roads get rough.
For whom shall I fear?
But I ain't afraid, no, not tonight. 'Cause the Lord is my light. And when that fear comes.
Hello, good afternoon to you.
Man, good afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon to you.
Man, it's very powerful, Matt, to hear what happened to us in our country. Foreigners, racists, extortionists, these foreigners come can be silent. Don't let them serve this country. Don't let China destroy your country for copper. Of that copper there, there's copper there. And the government don't care. More than pocket and destroy the government. Stop it right away. That's all about it.
Tremble, I've heard his call. The Lord Most High.
Let's say good afternoon to our guests here this afternoon, Janelle Gary and Professor Michelle standing with Dominica.
Hello.
Standing on this Debauch issue. Good afternoon to you, Gina. How you doing? Good to see you back on the radio.
Thank you. Afternoon, Matt. I actually just came off the boat and
Really?
straight to your studios.
How is the studies going so far? Thus far?
They're going, almost finished. So I'm excited to wrap that up and be able to dedicate all my time to Dominica again.
All right, Gary, how you doing?
Hi, good day, Martin. Hi,
Yes, you're gonna pull the microphone closer
Okay.
to you. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Matt, and everybody who's listening. I'm doing okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. We're happy to have you. And Professor Simon Mitchell, how you doing, sir?
Hello, I am fine. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you. Yes, yes, a little closer. Yes.
A little closer. All right. Okay.
All
Yeah.
right, good.
Yeah. No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
You're fine, huh? Okay. Well, we're going to jump right into this, and we're going to get an assessment as to what is taking place. Everybody's been talking about, we have had a stop for some time, maybe a couple of weeks, and now we're hearing that they're ready to commence again. Gina, what do you think of what you're hearing? We just heard some action taking place in Dewash. What's your assessment?
I mean, obviously, whatever is happening there is an illegal operation because we know there is a stop order in place and there has been no proper public consultation. There has not been any public review of the documents. And as far as we know, physical planning is still reviewing their proposals.
Mm-hmm.
So there should be absolutely no operation at the site.
So you're surprised to learn that big mission is going there?
Surprise is a strong word. I don't think we're surprised to know that something is happening there, but we are concerned that they believe that they can go above our people, our rights, and our laws and go straight into that site where they should not be.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of NASA standing like this?
Of course, everyone should stand like that. I commend Nasio for doing that and for all his vigilance over the past few weeks, monitoring the site and helping us to understand what's going on. I think that was a very bold move, and I think it sends the right message that enough is enough. This is our mother, and we are going to do everything to protect her, just like she has done everything to protect us for generations.
Gina? My Gary, sorry, I'm saying yes, Gary.
Yes.
What's your take on what's happening right now as we speak?
Well, just like you and the caller who just informed us, we are still learning in real time what's going on, and it's just as right. And well, we were expecting them to come at some point
to continue.
Yeah, because when the Prime Minister did come at Dewash on December 15th, he did say that the importance of the project and that they did want to continue it. However, our general is saying that there is a stop order in place and these consultations have not taken place. So the fact that they are trying to get back on site with these excavators, from what we're hearing, it's not right and it's illegal.
Let's turn our attention to Professor Simon Mitchell, of course, the man of the hour here. How are you, sir, again? How are you?
I'm fine.
Fine. But I think we want to go straight into it because what they're trying to determine whether these rocks in Dewash are maybe the best for the action they're trying to take in terms of getting the rocks to, of course, put on the airstrip. And Professor, I know you've been doing some research on that. What can you tell us this afternoon?
Well, I came there and I spent several days actually looking around the area and seeing what actual geology was there. I mean, we did a reconnaissance study to understand it. And the first thing you realize is there's actually quite a variety of different types of rock there. There's both, I'm going to use some terms, so there's a basalt, which is a darker rock, and there's an andesite, which is a paler rock, okay? But they're different rocks. Now, one of them has got mineralization in it, and of course, we've heard about these sorts of things, and if you look at it and you don't know what you're looking at, it's a shiny metal and it sort of looks a little bit like gold. But in fact, what it is pyrite or fool's gold. I mean, it goes by the name fool's gold. But in looking at this, and the previous report said the same thing, there is a little bit of copper there. And, in the past, they have drilled into that and found that there's more copper below. So what does lie below is some copper, probably at great depth, But that is an interesting question about, has that got anything to do with this? I don't know. All I can do is I can tell you what the geology is. What I am doing is telling you what the geology is from an independent geologist who's come in and looked at it. Now, one of the troubles with mineralization is mineralization can change the rocks. So one of the possibilities is that you get fluids going through. These fluids go through and they break down the rocks. Now that would mean that you may not have a uniformity of grade of rocks across the area. Now, I'll tell you one thing. If you're looking to put material on an airport, particularly on a runway on an airport, you must make sure that that meets international standards. So the only way of doing that is to test the rocks properly. Now, there's not that many exposures, and as far as I know, they have not been tested properly. Just as I am informed that elsewhere across the island, the rocks have not been tested as well. And really, you need to have that, because if you don't get the rocks tested and you put them on a runway, you will not get accreditation for using that airport. So what you've got to do is to make sure that whatever you're using meets international standards. And that is very, very critical. I mean, you can look at what went on in Jamaica when they went to resurface Norman Manley runway. They could not find anything suitable in Jamaica at the time, so they had to go to Canada to get something. So it may be that there are no rocks that are suitable in Dominica. It's quite possible. But how do you know if you haven't done the tests? And also, if you have done the test, why are the results not available to people? I mean, it would sound quite logical to say, oh yeah, well, these are good rocks because we've done the tests. Here are the results. Make your own mind up. But I'm not entirely certain that's been done. And equally, clearly where they're looking at excavating at the present time, you don't have the rocks that they're going to use there. So how do you know? This is the real question. I don't know that you do know. And so what I would say is that, I can't see why this is going ahead like this in this particular way, because it doesn't sound logical. I mean, in many other countries, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go in this route and do this. You would go about it different ways. You would look at what you've got. You would do the tests. You would say, okay, well, that quarry's got something we can use. Maybe we can use that in the base of the runway, but it's not good enough at the top of the runway. I think you need to look at it very carefully, and I think that people need to be very transparent about what's going on. And as far as I've been able to see, there's not that much transparency.
But have you done testing at the other quarries we have?
Well, we've looked at some of the rocks in the other quarries, but I mean, it's not up to me to go and actually test those rocks and make sure that they're appropriate for the airport. I mean, that's going to cost money and do that. I mean, I can suggest places where people could go and do it, but the reality is we looked at the other rocks. Okay, so we went around some of the active quarries and we looked at the material there. And in my mind, the material there looks better for several reasons. The first one is that there's no obvious sign of the mineralization in it, and the mineralization is something that can sort of cause problems. I mean, if you decide you're going to dig out this much material and then suddenly half of it is no use to you, what are you going to do with that material? I mean, we're talking about a river valley here. It's not going to be easy to get rid of it. Not going to be easy to store it anywhere. So that's a problem. But equally, some of these other rocks do have things like quartz in them, which is a mineral. And quartz is a better quality mineral than a lot of the things like feldspars, because it is much more chemically resistant to weathering. And of course, we live in the tropics. Okay, and in the tropics, what happens is many of these minerals break down. And so what you end up with is minerals or rocks that are not that suitable. And if they're not that suitable, you're not going to be able to put them on a runway.
I'm hearing there from their experts that this is the best rock that we have, and hence their reason for sticking to Desbois. But as you're saying, they have not presented the results of those tests. So how could we know that?
We couldn't. That's as simple as that. And I'm told by other geologists there that the rocks in the other quarries haven't been tested either. So how can you make the assumption that those rocks are better, the other ones aren't, when, as far as we know, they've not been tested?
Very, very serious. So what recommendations would you have for the government if you had to give any at this point in time?
If I gave recommendations, I would say go around and look at the active quarries that are present at the current, or are working at the present point in time. I would say get a series of analyses done on those to look at whether they actually meet the international standards required for runway material, and then look at where is the best place to actually go forward and mine or quarry this material.
Very, very. Any questions, Janelle, this time for Professor?
No, not any questions, but I want people to understand first and foremost that we are scientists and we lead by the facts that are in front of us based on the research that we are doing. So Professor Simon is a distinguished professor from the University of the West Indies in Mona, Jamaica. He is leading by his profession. He's leading by his ethical code, his moral code that we hold our scientists in the region accountable to. And he's doing this in a very unbiased way. It is just simply facts that our findings are very contradictory to what they are saying. And like Professor Simon said, that, we've done our research, we're showing you our results. So if what we are saying is wrong, or if there is any error in what we have published, we absolutely welcome that dialogue, to see their reports and to have that discussion, not only to understand the site better, but also to understand how we can improve our science and our surveys better, if that is the case.
So you're willing to have that discussed?
Of course, I think all of us are. But I mean, Professor Simon, he again is a very distinguished professor. He has
He received the let me just make sure I get it word for word. So Professor Simon, he received the W. Stores Cole Memorial Research Award in 2023. He is the first Caribbean-based scholar to receive this prestigious award from the Geological Society of America. So we don't doubt Professor Simon's research or what he's collected. And what we've been trying to do is be very scientific and data-driven. And we are basically putting forward what we have found out. We've been very transparent. I'm not sure if you've followed our social media pages, but we have shared different posts, including information of what we found. We've shared a drive that has all the documents that we have been going through, all the different laws and stuff, just so everybody could look into it themselves and come to their own conclusions.
Oh, let me just ask Professor, I think I should have asked that question first. I know you're not one who beats your chest, Professor, but how much of that work you have done before?
I've been working in the Caribbean for 30 years.
30 years.
30 years. And I spend most of my time looking at rocks in the field, all sorts of different rocks. And I've worked across many places in the Caribbean, including, now of course we've got Dominica to add to it, but in the past, obviously a lot of work in Jamaica, in Cuba, in Puerto Rico, in Antigua, in Curacao, in Trinidad, in Tobago, and the list goes on. I've worked across many of these places looking at different aspects. I advise companies on all sorts of aspects, from oil exploration through to mineral exploration. I advise companies in Jamaica and even the government in Jamaica now, and the people working for the government, on their road construction and where they're going to have problems because the rocks are not very good and they might have landslides and they will fall down. And so what I try to do is to bring a transparent way of looking at the geology and also provide the geology which is correct as far as I can see. And I have my own integrity when I talk about things. And so this is the reality of it. When I say something, it's what I feel is actually the case and not something that I'm trying to make up to help one group of people or another. And I will stand up in the media and I will say something like, if you build a road there, it's going to fall down. And they build roads in those places and they fall down. And so they actually asked me, can you come and look at the place where we want to build a road? And can you tell us whether or not we have a problem? And if we have a problem, where is the problem? So I think that what I am saying is that geology is there to be used, and you have a scientific series of questions you ask, and you put those forward, and you put forward the results you get, and then you leave it open for discussion, but it's got to be the right discussion. Okay? There are competing interests on, the different parts of lands in most of our islands in the Caribbean. And what we have to do is to make sure that we aren't giving away one set of interests to another set of interests without knowing why we're doing it. And that is, I think, part of the issue. We've got to be very, very careful that when we make decisions that are fact-based. And if you don't make decisions that are fact-based, I think you're on very, very dangerous ground. And so what I would be saying is that use facts, bring somebody else and look at it for all I like. It doesn't matter to me. I've looked at it. I've made my own observations. I mean, I've looked at that. I've taken samples back. I've illustrated samples. I've looked at them. So I know what I'm looking at. And, it's up to other people to show me what they understand about these places. Have there been tests done? If there've been tests done, make them publicly available. If they have not been done, do the tests. I think it's a relatively straightforward sort of way to go forward. And I'm not entirely convinced that secrecy helps anybody.
In Dominica, they would say you have no horse in the race. You're just speaking the truth.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, I'm speaking the truth because I don't have any agenda. All I have is the basically what I usually do, which is talk about what I see and what it means and how it is useful or not useful and that way of going forward. I try and talk in plain language rather than dressing it up in big terms. And I think that is the way to, basically provide information to people so that they can make their own decisions. And I think that is important.
Because some people have already suggested that you're part of a group, trying to prevent this international airport. You know how critics behave. But you're just saying there again that you want to present some objective facts before these people could delve further into building this airport.
Yeah, it's objective facts. I mean, I'm laying on the table what I've looked at and what I've found in that area. That somebody else can go and do exactly the same thing. They would find the same sort of stuff. There's no difference. I mean, I don't have an axe to grind. I mean,
no axe to grind.
So I mean, I am just telling you what I see there as a geologist who has 30 years of experience in the Caribbean, and 20 years of experience elsewhere.
Janelle, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I want to jump in here for two reasons. When Simon had come to Dominica to do the survey for us, we were just finding out from all the press releases that MMC and the government were doing that this was connected to the airport. Remember, initially we had no idea about the connection. We just knew that works were happening here and we needed to find all the facts. And that's exactly what we were going to do. People also need to understand that before Simon came to the island, we never met or spoke to Simon before. He came highly recommended from other colleagues of ours from the University of the West Indies and wider networks because of his extensive work in the region and beyond, because of his understanding of our region, of our geology, of our island creations. And yeah, I mean, Simon could have just as equally published a report or found things that would have perhaps agreed with their stance that this rock is actually better. And we would have had to, at the end of the day, say, okay, this is what the facts are saying, and this we're going to have to then act based on the facts. I mean, we had a bit of a impression as to what Daybwash was going to say, because this is not the first survey at Daybwash. They have been surveying Daybwash for 60 years now. 60 years this year, right? Since 1966, people have been in the area assessing the rocks over time. So we knew that there was something special about Daybwash.
Let's take a phone call. Are you there, caller?
Yeah, good afternoon to your guest and to the young lady. Thank you for your education, coming, bring your work back to Dominica. I appreciate you, and to the two other guests. And I want to give a shout out to Nasio and those that stand in for Dominica. Yo, it hurts me to see that Nasio, an artist, standing for Dominica, and many others in Dominica would not even take it. This is a true patriot. But what I'm saying, what one of the professors said, I mean, if you're looking for rock, why would you go in the soil where the rocks would be soft? Because it's moisture inside, on opposed to the rock that's been hit by the sun. And I understood all the airports in the Caribbean was made by quarries in Dominica they took. So why don't they do that? Why is Daybwash, like the young lady said, there's something there, like how many years ago they researched and something that's what they want. So why would the Prime Minister be deceiving the people? If you're mining for something, just be honest with the people. If that money is supposed to go to Dominica coffers, say that's what we are doing. But why deceive the people? And next thing you're going to mess up the river. And if this is a tourist resort, a reserved area, why are you doing that? I think Dominicans need to stand for Dominica. You got a couple guys who want to stand for Rosa Council, like Kenny G and the others. Why don't you all stand for in Daybwash? And people will see how you're patriotic and maybe help you for Rosa Council. Stand up for Dominica. I'm listening, my brother. Thank you all again.
All right, thank you. Thank you. You said, Professor Simon, just a short while ago that Jamaica had a similar problem in the past.
Yes, yeah, Jamaica had a problem with looking for rocks. I mean, basically we had to resurface the airport, and because, of course, it's an international destination, you have to make sure that you resurface it with rocks that meet international approval. Because if you don't, you won't get approval by the international airports authorities, and therefore planes can't land there. So you've got to make sure that you are using the right material, and what they call this material is skid resistant aggregate, and that is the situation. Now, part of the problem of that is that because we're in the tropics and because it's hot and humid and wet, the igneous rocks, they break down more easily. So it's actually much more difficult to find very, very good fresh rocks which are consistent quality. Now, if you go north and you go to places like Canada, what you find there is because you're in cold climates, the rocks don't break down. So what is easier to find is fresh rocks which have the right characters and are present in very large amounts. And so the reason that they went, or basically the government went to Canada to get this material, was because the material in Jamaica was not suitable. Now, we may have found material which now is suitable, but that took a long time to look for. Okay, and that is not something that you just, flick your fingers and say, oh, that will do. It doesn't work like that. And so I think the key thing to understand with this is that, because we're in the tropics, because a lot of people like coming to the tropics, that's why we have our tourist industries in different ways, that also means that we don't have necessarily the best rocks for doing this. And so I think that you've got to look very carefully at that and say, well, do we have sufficient rocks? I mean, I will also say that these rocks in this area are the oldest of the rocks in Dominica. Okay, they sit at the heart of the first volcano that we see in the island. And that's been eroded down, and that's why you see all that false gold in there. We know about all the volcanoes there at the present point in time, but all of those are younger than this one. This is the oldest rocks.
Any other question before we wrap up with, of course, Professor? Any question, John? or comments?
No, no, no.
Well, I'm looking at the comment that's popping up, and I think
The person must have tuned in late.
no, I know, but perhaps Professor Simon should speak to that because he did it at the presentation that we had at the Barano. Simon, they're saying that Dominica doesn't have enough copper to supply itself, but we want to make the point that we are not talking about Dominica having enough copper to supply itself. We didn't drill. We just did surface assessment to see what is the area going to be like. For them doing the quarry, they should be drilling and providing us with their geotechnical reports. But Simon had addressed this in his presentation at the Barano.
Yeah, let me say something a little bit about copper mining. I mean, copper mining is becoming an increasing problem in the world, and that is simply because a lot of the copper originally was in these giant deposits, particularly in places like Chile, along the Andes and that sort of thing. Now, the trouble with metals is that you exhaust these deposits. So a lot of companies now are looking for smaller deposits because they know that the price of copper is going to go up significantly, and therefore they're looking at deposits, and these are deposits that are going to come online in 20 or 30 years, not now. And so at the moment, there is quite a lot of activity going on in places. So, I mean, even in Jamaica, there's a lot of activity going on in Jamaica. But in Jamaica, it's all regulated. You've got to apply for licenses to do things. You've got to get the license. You've got to say what you're going to do, and you work through it. Now, you might spend 20 years looking for copper, and you might not find it. But you've got to abide by all the appropriate regulations. And the way you look at that is you do surface surveys to begin with, you find what's there, and then you start drilling. Now, what we're relying on in this area is that at least three wells or core holes have been drilled in the past, and they said that, well, it gets up to 2% of copper down there. Now, that could mean there's something at depth. That could mean that there isn't, because you don't know. But regardless of that, you've got, mining for copper is a very, very exhaustive process. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's something that is going to be a long-term operation, because you're not going to put a mine in that's going to last 2 years. You're looking at a mine that would go in for 30 years or something along those lines. And it would be large, because unless you've got a large mine, you're not going to be able to extract the material. So the question with these things is that something that Dominica wants or not? This is the question. And, you don't have to be producing copper to use copper. Everybody needs copper. I mean, today we've got all these electronic devices. We've got basically wiring that powers everything, and you need the copper for that. And the reality is that everybody in the world wants to have power and become better, acquainted with better equipments and things like this. But the real point about it is the number of people in the world is going up dramatically. So the need for copper is going up, and you really don't recycle that much copper, because there's not so much to recycle, because it's staying there in the actual networks we have, which feed the electricity around. So that's a big problem.
Professor, somebody just asked me to ask you whether you have seen other suitable rocks elsewhere apart from Desbranches.
Well, the thing is, I mean, we looked at some of the quarries, and yes, there does appear to be potentially suitable rocks there. But again, I mean, I can look at them and say, yeah, they look unweathered, they look possible. But without doing the tests to see what they look like, you can't say that for certain. And I think what you've got to do is you've got to have the tests to speak for you. I mean, the way we would do it if we were going to do this is go out, collect a series of samples, send them to the lab, get the results back, see if those meet the criteria you need for the actual material on the runway. And you'd want to do that in as many places as possible across the island. Now, if at the end of the day you find that, well, nothing meets it, then you have to go outside and find it somewhere else. I think you've got to look at it in a very logical way. And I'm not entirely certain the information is not available there to say that it's been looked at in a logical way.
Well, let's see if we can take a phone call there. Hello, yes?
Hello, good day. Good day, everybody.
Hello?
I'd like to ask you, Colonel, a question. If the stones that the government is trying to take off from the wash, and they get the amount that they require, and then they leave the wash and doesn't have anything to do with the bush anymore, what negative impact it's going to have on the environment, and as well as the Kalinago community? I understood earlier on that the river can be polluted, and some of the fishes that they used to enjoy from since they arrived in the Caribbean is all going to disappear. So I would like to know if the amount of stones that the government will require for the project is completed. After that, what impact it is going to have on the island? I mean, leaving that site and letting it to relax and everything. Is it still going to have a negative impact on Dominica and the Kalinago people?
And let me preface that question. He's saying how much deeper that the authorities have to dig to get the rocks they're looking for.
Yes. Hello, listener. What we're observing is when you look at Debash, just looking at it, you see a lot of clay. You don't see a lot of stones, and so what they are about to do, if they are digging for just the rocks are probably deeper than surface level, and a proper quarry, you want to do as least damage as possible. A good quarry, the rocks are there at the surface.
Right there.
And what this is going to cause in Debash is that where are you going to put all these soil? You're going to have to dump the soil somewhere. And so we've already observed that what they've removed, they have actually dumped it closer to the village, right near the water's edge. And so that was causing a lot of river pollution.
Mm-hmm.
And so that site has actually been exhausted. They can't dump there anymore, but the soil is there. And we're seeing Debash right now, so they have to remove more if they want to actually get the rocks that they want. And we don't know where they are going to dump all this excess soil. So that's, I'm not sure if they're looking elsewhere in the village, if they're going to continue polluting the waters, but that's just what we've been seeing so far. Water pollution is going to damage the marine life. It's between the months of September, October to November. The Concord River or the Pega River, which is where Debash flows into, has been mess during those few months.
It's been compromised.
Yes. The water was dirty almost every day until in November, when we observed that they started dumping the runoff into the water at a different way. And so it was less polluted, but it wasn't as clear as everybody saw. But now that the project has been stopped in December, the water has been clear. However, whenever rain falls, because of the damage to Debash, and Debash is in the forest, and the lowest point in Debash is the river. Whenever rain falls, the river gets dirty. It's a mess. And anybody who has lived in the area knows the river and when it gets dirty and what it looks like when it overflows. And we have a mess, a dirty river every time rain falls.
You know, given your research, why would you ask them to stop like right away?
Well, for those who are listening who don't really know Gary and my background, so Professor Simon is a geologist. Gary and I are interdisciplinary ecologists. So we study our wildlife and people, basically our communities on all sides of life. Where they're mining in Debash, they've so far excavated about 20 acres of land, right? They told the community that they wanted to excavate and quarry 80 acres. Gary and I realized when they presented their map to us at a meeting that 80 acres is actually twice the amount. They are going to clear 160 acres, and 80 of those acres comes directly from our protected lands. They are excavating an area right next to a river and they are dumping material right next to a river. So, with only 20 acres being excavated, the river turned brown for months and months, and the river is still turning brown whenever there is significant water in the. Well, it doesn't even have to be significant because it's a wet area.
Yeah.
Whenever there's enough water in the area, that river turns brown again. And to answer one of the comments, we have done testing. What Professor Simon was talking about is that we have not done testing for airport runway standards because that is not our job. That is not our concern. That is the developer and the government's job to ensure that they're doing the proper testing for what they claim they're using the materials for. We have tested the rocks to see what kind of rocks it is and the mineral composition in the rocks and how variable it is, to basically put out what we call a baseline assessment that they can then build off of to say whether or not these rocks are safe. So the rocks we found contain high levels of iron, right? I mean, Dominica is a very volcanic island. You see all the orange and the red in our soils. High levels of iron. There's cobalt. In addition to things like copper, there is antimony, there's tin, there's cadmium. And for those of us who are farmers out there, we know what cadmium means for our food sources. So there's mercury, there's levels of arsenic and so on. So these minerals are contained right now in rocks. When we excavate these areas, they are suddenly released in higher amounts than what that area is used to, and they go into our into our ecosystem a lot faster than what they are used to, which is why we saw, like in some rivers in Dominica, where you have a lot of iron leaching out into the water, where you would find our sulfur springs, right? There's a lot of iron coming into our water. You don't find things like VOs. You barely find crayfish and some other aquatic life because they cannot survive these environments. So when we were surveying Dabewash and we saw all of this iron leaching out constantly into our water, we actually saw bacteria starting to bloom, iron oxidizing bacteria. And what this bacteria does, it smothers the aquatic life, but it also takes out the oxygen from our river system. So we're going to start seeing a lot of our wildlife disappearing from our riverway. All that runoff is also going into our ocean. And fishermen, free divers that are already complaining about what's happening in the East Coast and on the West Coast with all the runoff from the quarries, how this is impacting our coral reefs, how this is impacting their ability to fish, and so on and so forth. It's farmers in the area are already complaining with all these large excavation works that wildlife is actually being driven onto their farms because we are taking away their food source, we are taking away their homes, we are taking away their quiet spaces. So they are migrating into areas like farms where it's plentiful with food, with shelter, it's quieter, and they're making their homes there. So it's not just when we say what is going to happen to our environment, it's not just what happens to the Jacko and Cicero. We are part of that environment. So we are being affected, whether that's through our health. We can't use that water anymore. We can't drink that water, much less if they actually turn this into a full-on quarry. I want people to understand that all the impacts we have so far seen, how the community has been so affected, is just from 20 acres out of 160 acres. Now, Dominica is already a landslide-prone, flood-prone area. So when you take down this mountain, and remember, Matt, they said they are going to blast our mountain to smithereens, right? They are going to blast it. So their intention is to take down our mountain. When you take down that mountain, look at what just happened in Pishleh with the landslide, the instability of the soil, and how that blocked an entire community and put an entire community at risk That is what is going to happen to Concord and the Pegua area and the other communities around. You're increasing their risk of landslides. You're increasing their risk of flooding, and the forest is not just like, with the way they're going to dig that site, the forest is not going to come back in 10, 20 years. It's going to take a long time. So that area for generations is going to have us exposed to high risk.
Let's take a phone call. Are you there?
Yes, I just have one last question to the professor and maybe the two other individual, if it's fit to answer. My observation, is it customary or normal to mix cement with soil? Because that's what they did in the airport. And the reason why I'm saying this, because I don't know, I'm not a business. I never seen that before. I just need your observation on that. And the reason why I'm saying that, my highest level of education is St. Luke's School, but I let common sense prevail. I know in America, if they want to relocate the wildlife, they create a brush fire, and the wildlife relocate wherever they want it to relocate the wildlife. Now, I'm just saying, by the fish that comes to Dominica, they feed on the high rains and whatever they washed out in the sea, they feed on earthworm and the other stuff. So if you want to relocate the fish, is it a way of putting cement in the soil, kill all the ends with the soil? There's nothing for the fish, so the fish will have to relocate elsewhere. It's just my common sense I'm using on that. Is it customary to put cement in the soil opposed to sand? Why did you do that, and what is the purpose for that?
Cement and mixing with clay. That's the question he's asking. Professor,
let
can you speak?
Yeah, let me say that, and then let me say something also about contamination issues as well. But let me start with that. Really, when you make cement, you make cement basically by taking lime or taking limestone and actually heating it up to make the clinker, and then the clinker actually reacts as a reaction with the material you put with it. You've got to be very careful what that material is, because if you put the wrong material in there, you get a very weak cement. And of course, a weak cement is not going to be of any use in building type properties. So it's very critical you know what is in your cement and also what is in the aggregate you're putting with that cement. There can be many minerals in there which will react in a bad way with the cement and actually create very weak cements. And if that's the case, it's not a good scenario, because of course, whatever you've made with that then becomes a problem. I mean, you can look around the world and there are places where they use cement which has been substandard, and now they're having to replace it and replace the buildings. But the other thing I wanted to say was a little bit about the contamination potential. And we've heard about the potential of some of those metals, and they're not the best of metals. But what you've also got to realize is that those metals are present as sulfides. Sulfides contain sulfur. Okay, and what that can end up doing is producing hydrogen sulfide and sulfuric acid. So if you end up with a lot of mine waste, which is contaminated with large amounts of pyrite, and we certainly saw lots of pyrite, then what we have the potential for is to that leak sulfuric acid for the length of time until you do something with it. Now, I don't know what you do with that in a place like Dominica. So I would say that there's a second issue, not just the metals, but the sulfur that the metals are tied up with, because once you put it in an oxide environment, it starts oxidizing and producing sulfuric acid. And I'm not entirely certain that anybody wants sulfuric acid. That's the stuff you make car batteries out of, leaking into your river systems. So I think you've got to look at it in a bigger way. This is probably the stuff that is going to be rejected. But if it's rejected, what do you do with it? Gary was saying that there's a problem there with, there's nowhere to put the stuff. So if you've got a lot of this rejected stuff, where are you going to put it? There's a big problem. And I think that you've got to look at all of these aspects. I mean, when you actually work in a quarry and you set up a quarry properly, you've got to look at not just what you do with the stuff you remove, what you do with the waste material, and then how you reclaim the land afterwards. and many mine dumps which have sulfides on them. These sorts of nasty, basically minerals, they leach stuff for years, tens of years, centuries. And so I think you've got to be a bit careful about that as well.
I think somebody else was calling and asking a question, so let's take a phone call. Hello, yeah.
But good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Yes, sir, this is Bernard Morrow from Massachusetts.
Yes, sir.
How many Kalinago, my brother? Is the Kalinago people working on the site?
Working on what site?
On the site on the site where the guy is doing the doing.
Are you aware, Gary? Any Kalinagos are working there?
Yes.
At Debonche.
There are a few guys I know who are doing security,
Mhm.
but I am not aware who is employed on the trucks or the escalators or anything like that.
You asking the question, preamble?
My brother, Matt,
I'm here.
that is going to directly affect the Kalinago. And all the Kalinago people, my brother, they're supposed to be stopping the guys at the watch. It's not for you. Because if they wait is there, it might not affect Roseau, Massac, and the area, but it's there that's going to be directly affected. And my brother, so they're supposed to put their foot down and stop that.
Basically, he's saying that the Caribs indigenous people should join with the process action. That's his point.
Some nights get long,
We're going to come back, Dominica. Professor, stick around.
some roads get rough. But I ain't afraid, no.
Company Limited. We manufacture high-quality roofing sheets, 24 gauge in different colors, also to customer specifications. That's right, whatever length you want. Aluminum seamless guttering. We also sell BRC mesh, steel rods in all sizes, breach caps, fencing wire, and fencing poles. Free estimates for guttering, galvanized sheets, and fencing wire. Quality products at the lowest prices island-wide. Royce and Company Limited, located at Caneville Industrial Site, Shed 1A, just before the Old Mill Cultural Center. Call us today at 617-2468 or 615-0178. Royce and Company Limited, built for living, built for life.
Exciting news from AutoTrade. Incredible savings are here. Take advantage of AutoTrade's Thrifty Thursday promotion. Mark your calendars. On the last Thursday of each month, AutoTrade is offering up to 20% off items throughout the store. Yes, 20% off. But wait, there's more. Keep your eyes peeled for our exclusive Deal of the Day offer, bringing you even bigger discounts on select items. Whether you're looking for car accessories, maintenance essentials, or just browsing for a great deal, we've got you covered. So be sure to swing by AutoTrade every last Thursday. At AutoTrade, it's more than a vehicle, it's a relationship. Terms and conditions
One trusted place to stock up for your home, shop, or business? Fine Foods Inc. Distribution has got you covered. From dry goods and frozen foods to your favorite drinks, alcoholic and non-alcoholic, plus all the household must-have. We've got it all under one roof. We're right here in Jimmy Dominica, and yes, we deliver. Whether you're running a supermarket, a corner shop, a bar, or just like your pantry full and happy, Fine Foods Inc. brings you the best brands you know and love. Great prices, top-tier service, trusted products. At 255-6810 or 316-0164, or drop by our Jimmy location to check out what's in store. Fine Foods Inc.
Fine Foods Inc. The biggest distributor for the biggest brand. Oh, na, 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 na. Oh, na, 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 na.
This Tuesday night, it is our 7th Global Beyond Q show. And we continue to engage with our local, regional, and global Q family listeners and friends of Dominica. With me is my co-host Justice Dr. Irving Andre, social scientist Simeon Joseph, former CSA General Secretary Alvin Thomas, and former Dominica UN Ambassador Crispin Gregoire. This Tuesday night is all about national security and economic interests of small island states like Dominica amidst the Middle East war, global insecurity, Caribbean sanctions, and trade disruption. We are some talking points, gave the rules-based global order structure at the end of World War II coming to an end with wars in Ukraine and Iran and U.S. military operations in Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, and Ecuador, and suggestions of a U.S. intervention in Cuba. The Monroe Doctrine now replaced by Dunroe in the Western Hemisphere. What does this mean for the Caribbean going forward? How will the war in Iran affect the future of OECS CBI program? The insecurity arising from the U.S.-Israel attack on Iran. What will this war mean for CARICOM and small island states like the OECS in terms of rising costs of food, trade, fuel, electricity, and travel as a result of increasing oil prices? Should Caribbean countries continue the policy promoting renewable energy development, reduction of dependence on fossil fuel for electricity generation? Should Caribbean countries start advocating for an end to the conflict and return to the fallout with the U.S. on the CBI programs in the OECS has resulted in visa restrictions to only one visit over a 3-month period? Would the annual $50 million of remittances to Dominica via Western Union and MoneyGram from the diaspora be impacted, just as has been the case with Cuba? China depends on Iran for most of its oil supplies and might have an interest in intervening in the U.S.-Israel-Iran war. Now, Russia is assisting Iran and may use this Iran war as an opportunity to posture as a mediator to bring an end to the Middle East hostilities, and at the same time take this opportunity to escalate the war with Ukraine while the U.S. is engaged with the Iran war. So where does CARICOM and the OECS go from here in this new global crisis? What are the implications for the Caribbean relations with Venezuela, China, and Cuba in the face of U.S. geopolitical interest in the Caribbean as manifested in U.S. actions in Venezuela and Cuba? Are CARICOM and the OECS in need of strategic policies and plans that are relevant to fuel, transportation, and economic stability as cargo ships and oil tankers passing through the Strait of Hormuz are disrupted by the military escalation involving the United States, Israel, and Iran? Most Caribbean countries import some 90 to 100% of their fuel, and a significant portion of global oil shipments pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Even if CARICOM imports come mainly from the United States Gulf Coast, those prices are pegged to global oil benchmark Brent WTI, and Caribbean fuel prices will rise even if the oil is not directly sourced from the Gulf Coast. So for Dominica, this means higher electricity costs, higher transportation costs, and rising food prices. Caribbean airlines and travel will also be impacted as fuel represents 30 to 40% of airline operating costs. Caribbean households, therefore, the response should be strategic in that citizens should prepare for higher food prices, higher transport costs, and price increases for electricity. This crisis could be an opportunity to grow home gardens, reduce vehicle fuel consumption, use public transport where possible, and increase food storage of staples. May also be a strategic opportunity for the Caribbean to accelerate renewable energy transition and renewable energy integration, create food self-sufficiency, and embark on bulk food and pharmaceutical supply import. And here's a question finally. Are those who busted U.S. sanctions by transporting and selling Iranian oil be held to account? We will have some follow-up questions, and if you like, some talking points based on the submissions of our panelists. So we look forward to the contributions of Justice Dr. Irving Andres, Social Scientist Simeon Joseph, former CSA General Secretary Alvin Thomas, former Dominica UN Ambassador Christine Gregoire, and Q95 callers and viewers on Facebook and YouTube on that topic. So tune in Tuesday night and much more.
And the people will rise up and shine.
Brought people together so the community fed off the pan and fed and cared for the pan and the group of players.
You had 3 women playing steel band. It was Marlene Detush, Cornelia Prosper, and Pamela Shillingford.
Steel band, but 3 was what was good about pan. It brought people together. They assembled around the band. But for some reason, our communities, when there's a festival in Point Michel or a festival in Granby, what kind of music do you hear? What kind of instruments do you see? What has happened to Jinping, quadrille and dance in a place even like Granby?
Steel band, but 3. You adopt the band in SMA, you adopt the band at Convent Grammar School.
That's why pan needs to be in the schools, because it can be used to teach children mathematics. So you can make math a joy for children.
Steel Pan Part 3. This Friday, March 30th, Atherton Marte will be joined by Pan Genius James Gregoire as we look at the way forward for Steel Pan in Dominica on Creole Helmets on Q95 FM from 11 a.m. Steel Pan Part 3.
And in fact, discourages that kind of awful disrespect of the human body by man or woman, and instead replaces it with a sense of belonging, a sense of being cared for, and a sense of learning.
All right, Dominic, we're back. We're here, of course, with Gary and Janelle, and of course, Professor Simon Mitchell here. We're talking about, of course, the wash and some of the repercussions to expect if we continue that way. I think I have, of course, a message that I want to share quickly there. Somebody wants to share a voice note. Let's see if we can get to that, and then we'll continue with some information re St. Vincent.
Good afternoon to you, Matt.
Good afternoon.
afternoon to your listeners. Matt, I believe that Dominicans at this point in time need to reflect very carefully on the suggestions, the information given by the professor and by the two young people who are trained in areas relevant to conservation and preservation of our land and water resources. I listened a while ago when the gentleman said that you have to think very carefully about the waste products and how you get rid of the waste products. I also took note of the fact that Gary mentioned the clay soil that has been deposited on lands close by. The clay soil that has been deposited on these lands, there are tons and tons and tons of that clay soil that would have to be removed from that site in order for you to excavate it and do whatever it is that you want to do with it. Those tons and tons of clay soil would be deposited as they have already on agricultural land that can be utilized for agriculture. And once those clay soils are laid on top of that agricultural land, that land can no longer be utilized except if you remove the clay soils from on top of it. So the point raised by the gentleman about the waste, as well as that raised by Gary about the clay soil, basically gives you insight into the problems that you're going to be dealing with, because Dominica is such a small island. Are we going to be taking the clay soil and dumping it down the valleys somewhere in order to fill the valleys up with clay soil? Can you do that anywhere in Dominica and not affect the communities downstream? Are we thinking as Dominicans about the water, the most precious resource you can find anywhere on planet Earth is water, right? The scientists are trying to find out whether they can get water from Mars, because water is that important to life.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that water, and we are ignoring the fact that this project would decimate the water sources that we now have in Dominica that give us fresh, clean, drinkable water as it is at this point in time. So we need to reflect on these things very seriously, and we also need to research as Dominicans who are interested in preserving our island. We need to research what happens. Look online. Look at the photographs online of places where copper has been mined around the world. And look at how these communities have become absolutely devastated from the seeping mineral water that comes from these areas that have already been mined. And think about how it will affect the areas surrounding Concord and other areas after the mining is done, years later. Think about the amount of land, soil, water that will be lost as a result of this project. And then ask yourself, can Dominica really afford to allow for this to happen? For some people to enrich themselves even further than they have already. For some people to fill their pockets even more than they have already, while they destroy everything that the poor man is entitled to on island. God bless our country, my brother.
Now I'm reading some of the comments on Facebook, the Facebook page, and I'm getting the impression there that some people are asking for solutions. Where do we go if we can't find the rocks in Dewash? Where do we go? I heard Professor speaking to maybe going to exploring the possibility of maybe like Jamaica going to Canada, but that might be a little expensive. Would you think though?
I mean,
Solution on that.
to reiterate what Simon said earlier, again, we are not the ones responsible for testing these sites. If a developer wants to come and do these projects, or whoever hired them to do these projects, they need to know before you even break ground, where can you possibly get these materials from?
We should have it along.
Right.
We should have had it a long time ago. But we potentially have the material in Dominica. We cannot, we're scientists and we're sticking to the facts. So we cannot tell the government or MMC or CR5, go to Collio, because as far as we know, none of the quarries in Dominica have been tested to airport standards. Again, testing for airport standards is a whole different testing.
But I've heard that Guadeloupe have explored the Collio and of course use it for the airport.
Well, I don't know
So
about
what-
using it for the airport, but for sure they use it for their road construction and building construction itself. I'm not sure about the airport, but they do
Mhm.
source a lot of aggregate material in Dominica. That is very true.
Mhm.
I don't know what exactly they use it for. But again, for an international airport, and people need to understand that we are just trying to make sure that if this is what they're really intended to do with the site, which by our evidence shows that they are not intending to use this truly or at least solely for the airport, let me say that. Perhaps there's an alternative motive because the materials do not seem suitable from what we are finding, our initial basic findings,
Mhm.
basic testing.
But you want to compare your notes with theirs.
Yeah, but people also need to understand, because everyone's saying, oh, the airport must be built, the airport must be built. But this is an international airport. So if we take the material from Dewash and dump it on the airport and it fails testing, regardless of what we are saying, the airport is not coming because the airport has to pass international testing standards for a plane to touch down at that runway. Because a plane touching down on that runway is not only risking the lives of Dominicans, but you're risking the lives of every single nationality on this planet. For us to have that airport, it has to be done properly. It has to be done with all the testing, and it has to meet international standards.
Are you not satisfied that all the testing have been done?
I cannot say we are not satisfied because we have the
Not seen it. You've
the
not seen it.
public.
You've not-
I don't even know the number of Dominicans who have seen it, but the public by large in Dominica and the world, as far as we know, have not been previewed. So for all we know, they could have done the test. They could have the certificate, but they are not publicizing
Why?
it. And this is exactly. That's the problem. If you have the certificate, if everything is approved, Matt, if somebody were to question my my skill set, I will happily show you my awards, my degrees, my whatever to justify why I'm here talking to you today. Easy peasy, because I have it in my back pocket. You know, I've achieved it, I've gotten it, I've passed my test. But if you are hiding the test from me, if somebody's questioning my education, my skill set, and something as simple as a diploma that I'm supposed to have in my back pocket, I'm refusing to show that to them, then there's something wrong.
You're hiding something.
Yeah, like
I'm hiding
why
something.
the secrecy?
Yeah.
That's it. That's one of the questions we're asking. Why the secrecy? I saw someone said something about evidence. Well, we're still waiting to see the evidence that justifies them using Dewash as a quarry site. The public has been asking since last year, November.
September.
We're going yeah, we're going into March and we have not seen any of those.
Let me put the question to Professor. Professor, some people are asking for some solutions going forward because apparently they're saying that we're talking, yes, we're talking, but they're trying to find solutions. What is the best way forward with this international airport, if you had to give any?
The simple way is to look at the materials that are available and actually do appropriate tests. Now, there's not going to be a lab in Dominica that can do that. You're going to have to find somebody outside who's certified to actually do those tests. And that requires, and that's not just a once-off. During the life of the quarry, during the life of the project, you need to be testing to make sure that you haven't gone into something that's poor quality. So you've got to be testing to make sure that's the case. I mean, the sort of thing we're talking about is what they call polished stone tests. And that basically means that you take a piece of aggregate, so whatever it happens to be, an inch aggregate, and you basically run a polishing across it and you see how quickly it polishes. Now, if it polishes as quickly, it's not good enough for an airport. You can put it on a road. You can use it maybe as the base of an airport, but you can't put it on the top of an airport. And the reason being is that when a plane lands, it can't brake and the plane can't stop. And that's why there are regulations about what is used on international airports. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's not as though it's, oh, well, we'll find this and just put it on the airport as a top level layer. It's not going to work. What you've got to do is you've got to have material in there which will last, it doesn't wear away, and it gives sufficient braking for whatever the life of that runway is. Now, if you're looking at it, maybe it's a 10-year...
Hold on, thought, Professor. Let me just take a call there. Hello, yes?
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you.
I think we have a Dominican geologist on the line there. Good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm just listening to the conversation. Good afternoon to Gary and Janelle and the professor, the geologist from Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure, I know most people know my name, but Leonard here because I've been calling and advocating for a long time, mainly so that things are done right as it relates to the international airport. Matt, for those who listen and who don't know, I'm going on my 22nd year of doing environmental consulting. I registered geologist in the state of Texas, did 10 years in Florida. And to become a registered geologist, I had to take, and I'm not saying that for bragging purposes, so people know my background when I'm speaking. I don't speak out of a place of ignorance. To become a registered geologist, I am required to have 5 years of training under a professional geologist and to do an exam. One is a fundamental and one is a practical. It's an 8-hour exam, and I can't do it until I have 5 years working under a registered geologist. So I totally understand and I have been on this airport program, not because we're trying to stop an airport, but because if things are not done right, its infrastructure is not done right, it's going to cost the people of Dominica much more. If you don't do your due diligence, you're going to have costs that you did not prepare for, and something that might cost $1.2 billion might end up costing $4 billion. And let me give you a couple of examples of where things go wrong. Just take a look at the Catholic Church that's being built in Dominica, the cathedral. They indicated that it's going to cost what? I don't remember the number, but it's still not finished yet, and it's way over cost. That's because enough work had not been done. Let me give you another example. We were recently building a roof at the grammar school. Nobody knew who the contractor was. Nobody seen the plan. The roof collapsed. we heard there was going to be an investigation, and the building had been demolished. Now you ask yourself a question: who's paying for that? So if that building was $10 million, now you just put $10 million in a building, it collapsed because of shady construction. We did not hear from our government, and now you have to start again. So that building is now going to cost probably $20 million because you have to put in the cost of removing the rubble. Matthew, see where I'm going with this. And then when your hospital doesn't have equipment, that money could have been used for hospitals, for other things. And people die in the hospital because of there's lack of equipment. So there's a chain reaction when our government wastes money and overspend for lack of preparedness. But ultimately, if there was proper EIA done as it relates to one of the largest infrastructure projects that we are undertaking in Dominica, most of the problems we are talking about right now would have been solved, looked at, answered, and so on. Many people in Dominica do not know what a geological map looks like. There is one that I saw a few years ago that shows the different rock formations in Dominica, and I think one of the guy, Robin, had an online presentation where he showed, based on that geological rock, the same rock that is in Deboche is found in several areas around Dominica, and basically it's just showing you the sequence of volcanic eruptions that have happened over the millions of years in Dominica and how they laid out and why you have certain features. But having said this, I did see the report from the gentleman from Jamaica. I took a look at the report. I read the report. My professional experience, whenever you have things like that, there is always multiple investigations or analysis. So you would have gotten one from the contractors and one that is independent. So one of the reasons you do that is to make sure there is QA/QC on your lab results, your method of sampling method, whether it's approved. It may not be in Dominica because we probably don't have, not something that's nationally approved, but I don't know what methods and standards we have adopted, if it's a Caribbean method, if it's international method. That's the reason you have those things. So the general and these guys are right, stating that if the government is telling you that these rocks are suitable only in Deboche, then they should have all of the data and the results present to the public. And we have a right as the public to investigate that information to make sure it's correct. And these things should have been done way in advance of building an international airport. You want to know something, Matt Peltier? I'm going to break the news to Dominicans. These rocks have been there for over 10 million years. So we had ample time to find out what are the composition of all the rocks in Dominica. So to tell me at this point, if you build an international airport and you find only one place that has all the rocks in it, makes absolutely no sense, because one of the things that the professor came out in his report is there is a lot of variation in the rock, in the rock. So if your argument is that rock has the best density, then let me tell you what's the biggest problem with that. Just that statement, let me tell you what's the biggest problem with that. If you're doing an engineering design, there has to be a maximum and there has to be at least a minimum acceptable rock density that you can use. So anything below that is unacceptable. So there is no one particular density exactly that's going to match a rock to exact construction of an international airport. It would make sense if they had said, hey, we need a rock density of between X and Z, and that area provides that. But Matt, that wasn't mentioned, and then we don't have the backup. So just that simple comment, tell me it's a whole bunch of hogwash. So at the end of the day, I really appreciate that there are Dominican citizens who have gone to school, want to get an education, want to inform themselves, and are questioning the modus operandi of our administration that shows absolutely no respect and concern for the people of Dominica. And what they are displaying, I'm not going to get into all the technical stuff because it frankly, they're doing a good job by themselves. I don't need to add. What we are seeing is what had been required in Dominica for a very long time, so that people become informed. Can you imagine? There is a planning division that does not have the information when they are mandated by law to ensure that any construction, any structure in Dominica is built according to the rules. and planning has no information. That's a breach of our own governance. So Janelle and Gary, all I can tell you guys is to keep on doing what you're doing, because history will judge you right. And at the end of the day, if we don't get this right, Dominica is going to have a facility. They have spent, according to the government, your passport, your CBI sales on, and we're going to have a facility that we cannot maintain, 2, we cannot afford, and infrastructure, if not done right, has shown to cripple countries with economies like ours, Matt Delty. I'm just letting you know. So, like I said, I'm not going to get into the weeds and nitty-gritty of the report. I've seen it myself, and I think there is a lot more that has to be done. And I think the Dominican public needs to understand that without people like Janelle and Gary, then we are going to have serious problems in our society when it comes to doing projects like that. Marcel, you have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Well said. Yes? I'm just getting a report there from St. Vincent that seems to indicate that as cracks and holes continue to appear on the runway of the international airport there, Ajaz International Airport, the government will have to allocate $32 million to fix the perennial problem. Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Godwin Friday told lawmakers that the tarmac is in very poor condition, and it's a big bill for the AIA. The AIA is the country's largest capital project to date, costing $700 million and funded through loans, grants, and kind contributions. There's a particular section of that. When planes land, it gets disturbed. Every few days, it seems to be that they have to repair it. And this has been ongoing for years, the Prime Minister said during the debate of the 2026 estimates of revenues and expenditure. This is not something that just happened when we formed government. Friday will let the new Democratic Party the 14-1 victory on 27th of November over the Unity Labour Party, which built the airport that opened in 2017. Dominica, take note. Cracks already on that international airport. Do we want the same to happen in Dominica? Huh? What do you think? And that's a message here.
No, we don't want any of that happening in Dominica. And the main thing, the first thing you have to do, I just want to thank the gentleman who just called earlier.
Yes.
I'm glad that he read the report, and we understand that the report could be very technical and not everybody can understand it. What I would advise is read the introduction and read the discussion if you're not in that field space, and hopefully that could help you. But I'm glad he raised all those points and stuff like that. But as you're talking about St. Vincent, the runway is cracking and it is expensive
compromised
to repair.
About 2 months ago, the holes on the runway resulted in the airport being downgraded to temporarily and some flights being cancelled or delayed. Do we want it to happen in Dominica?
No, we don't want that to happen in Dominica. And Dominica is trying to make one of the biggest airports in the Caribbean. It's a monumental project. We understand that, but people also need to understand that if we want it to be successful, we want to ensure that we have gone through all the protocol and all the necessary steps to ensure that this airport can last. So when the time comes when it has to be repaired, that the cost would not be as great.
Professor, you've heard what happened. It happened in St. Vincent. Are you surprised?
It doesn't surprise me about a lot of things. I mean, one of the problems is you need to repair runways. They take a very, very great deal of sort of wear and tear when aircraft land on them. I mean, everybody sees aircraft come down. And then, of course, they take wear and tear when we get tropical systems coming across. So these sorts of things are problems. Now, if you don't build it in the best way possible to begin with, so you've got substandard stuff underneath it, then, of course, its lifespan is going to be shorter. And if you've got one runway, you've got a problem, because if you've just got one runway, then what else do you do when it doesn't work anymore? And most of our airports in the Caribbean have one runway. We don't have multiple runways on these things. And I think the point is that I think that everybody is saying that there's no, I don't think people are saying that You don't need to build a nice big airport that is going to, support the country for many, many years to come. What they're saying is that you've got to do it the right way. And I mean, are you going to give up parts of your natural areas to basically build that runway? What happens when you need to replace it next time? You take more of it? I think there becomes a question. I mean, you can look at similar situations in Jamaica, where cockpit country became the very, very big area, the Limestone Plateau area, where the people of Jamaica stood up and said, no, you're not going to go on mining that. And then the government stood up, listened, and said, we protect that area. Now, I think that there needs to be a very good discussion about these things. What are we prepared to lose to fund these things, and what are we not prepared to lose to fund it? And that is not for a government to say. That is for the people of the country to stand up and make their own voices heard. And it's only when people in the country do that that you actually get an idea of what's going on. It's no good.
Phone call. Somebody's waiting there. Are you there, caller? Yes.
Good afternoon, Matt. This is Athi Mate.
Athi Mate, good afternoon to you.
I wanted to add my voice to, commending Janelle and Gary, and certainly the professor for taking, if you will, this bull by the horns and actually bringing to bear scientific knowledge and data on this very critical matter. I am reminded of the fact that in 1963, Matt, there was a full study done on the soils of Dominica. It was done by the Research Institute at the University of West Indies in Trinidad. Why is that important? Where you have a report that catalogs the full range of the soil diversity that is existent in Dominica. It is important because all soils eventually come from rock, the weathering of rock. It takes nature 100 years to create an inch of topsoil. And that inch of topsoil in a place like Dominica, volcanic in origin and so on, comes from the rock. So the soils rarely tell the story of the source of their source coming from rock. And you can do more intense and detailed investigation by geologists like Simon and like Lennon, who just called a while ago, if you want to look at the rock for a particular use. But the reason I share that information about the soils data that exists, people are asking the way forward. The way forward is to do it right from the beginning. The point Lennon is making again. If you do it right from the beginning, then you wouldn't have to go back and face a situation like the Vincentians are now facing. In 1972, there was another major study done on the soils, rocks, and land of Dominica. This one done by David Lang. So it's not as if we don't have the data, Matt. But you need mechanisms for using that data to draw effective and accurate conclusions about what is it you're working with. And that is the point that Lennon and others have been making for some time now. The information available in Dominica apparently is not being used when we are planning, whether it's agriculture or construction or in this case quarrying and mining. We appear not to be willing to use the data, so we're guessing. And even when it comes to a massive project like an international airport, where is the EIA for that airport project? We have laws that require that. And EIA is not just a study of the precise site of the airport, Matt. An EIA looks at the entire footprint of the entire area that is likely to be impacted by the construction of that airport. For example, if the airport site is in Wesley, what about Londonderry? What about Woodford Hill? What about Melville Hall? What about Concord? What about Pegua? These are all areas that in one way or another are impacted by the construction of the airport, so that the EIA, the Environmental and Social Impact Assessment Study, has to look at all these areas. Where is that study? Who has that study? Is it, and by law in Dominica, by the planning law, when such a study is done and is submitted to planning and planning reviews it, it must be made available to the public. It's not possible or maybe, it must be made available. So, and if that had been done, a lot of the questions being raised about the integrity of what's going on at Wesley now in the name of an international airport would not exist. And I do recall in my years working as an assistant to the agronomist at Windward Islands Banana Research, we did soils assessment in places like Mount Prosper, places like Woodford Hill, like Granford, and we uncovered all these elements that we don't, the cadmium, the boron, the molybdenum. They were called trace elements because they're only in our soils in very minute amounts, but they play a very critical role, even if they're only in minute amounts. But here's what we discovered, and this is relevant to the quarrying and mining study. It was discovered that where these elements are in the soil but are not concentrated in rock, they were impacting our use of fertilizer for agriculture. And we discovered through trials that a lot of the fertilizer we started using in bananas, we didn't need to use them. And it was costing us a lot more to use it, when in fact all we had to do was adjust the acid level, the acidity of the soil by applying limestone, which would cause a release of the nutrients that had been held hostage by a lot of these trace elements. So it's not as if we don't know much. Many of us, Dr. Al Mario, Dr. Davidson Lloyd, Mr. Colin Bully, there's a whole range of Dominicans who have intimate knowledge and experience with our soils. But because if you're not making the right kind of sounds and praising up people in public office, especially over the last 25 years, nobody wants your view. They think that because you're raising an issue, you don't want an airport. You want a project to be done well from the get-go. Otherwise, as we know, it's going to cost more to repair. And so I just want to raise the importance of the work being done by Janelle, by Gary, and now Simon. And people don't just see that, oh, these fellas just they're playing scientists. I've heard people say that. They're just playing scientists. We want our airport. You want your airport. You want your airport. If that airport is going to be certified and licensed for international air carriers, do you realize that all these documents we're talking about here are going to have to be delivered to ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Authority, for their review? Do you realize that? And if they find that there's not been proper diligence in the carrying out these things, they could very well delay licensing the airport even after you've built it. So let's be clear. When we raise those issues, it is because we believe and we know we can do it the right way from the beginning. I'm saying all of this to suggest that there are efforts underway on the project site in Wesley now, where thousands of tons of cement are being mixed with clay. That clay up there has the same trace elements that we're talking about, the boron, the molybdenum, the cadmium, and so on. And they're mixing cement with that and putting it on the alignment of the proposed runway, even as we're speaking right now. And they are compacting that as the base for the surface of a runway on which international airlines are supposed to land jets filled with hundreds of passengers. Let's be clear. That is not the only issue. That is one of the issues that you would have had to resolve by carefully selecting the material you want to use to create a firm foundation for your runway. And if you don't have that firm foundation for your runway, your example of what's going on in St. Vincent would begin to happen here. We know that. So why are we fiddling and playing games with people's lives?
Afi, I don't know if you're aware of what happened earlier when Nasir Fountain, and he's still there, stood in front of a big heavy-duty machine there, they wash. Is it something that you support?
But of course, I've had need to do that in the past, to stand in front of heavy-duty equipment, to let it be known that this is not smart. There was a time under another government, they wanted to build a sports stadium, a cricket stadium, in the botanical gardens. And Henry Shillingford and myself had to go and stand up in front of whatever equipment they were starting to bring there to mash up the gardens, to build a stadium for cricket. Come on. So what Nazio is doing now is what people all over the world who are passionate and serious about protecting, preserving, so that the people of the country can benefit from it. Let's be clear. This is not, Nazio is not doing this for Nazio. He's doing it to send a message to the rest of us that Dominica is for all of us, which means all of us have to have a say in what goes on in Dominica. And any administration that is intent on governing the country by way of secrecy, they cannot last very long. They should not last very long.
Afi, thank you very much. Thank you.
Afraid, no.
We'll go back to our three contributors here in the afternoon.
'Cause the Lord is my life. And when that fear
Before we let you off, Professor,
Yep.
words before you go. I know you're a very busy guy. Thank you, though, for joining us this afternoon.
I'm glad I can spend the time and actually, present information. As I say, I think that people need proper information to make informed decisions. And I think that's always the way.
Again, thank you, Professor. Any words finally to Professor Janelle, Gary?
Oh, I just want to say thank you, Professor Michel, and his work that he's done. As we were saying at the start, that he's very experienced in this field, and he has brought forward a very scientific and data-driven approach to the situation, and that's what we want to applaud. This is the only geo report that we've seen on the whole Daywash topic, and we're still waiting to see if there are others that the developers have, that Physical Applied might have. And so we could compare and look at it, because this problem, as Mr. Afi was saying, as well as we've been emphasizing, could be disastrous for Dominica if we don't follow the proper measures and stuff like that. But we're closing up, right?
No, not yet. I'm just saying to have you say something to Professor. We're not closing up yet.
Okay.
No, but I mean, I also want to chip in there and say, it was a real honor and pleasure to be able to experience Professor Mitchell's work firsthand. And we just want to say a big thank you for coming here so last minute, because typically you give a lot more notice.
Yes.
But he understood the urgency of the situation and the urgency of us needing the information to be able to understand what giants were really facing and what the problem is. And so he figured it out very last minute, and he allowed us, to be able to step into his world and not just, providing us with the information, but also allowing us to be a part of understanding what it takes to produce a report. So thank you. We are extremely honored, and even more respect to the geologists out there for what you do, because it is not easy at all.
Yeah. Again, Professor, thank you very much.
All right.
Hope to see you soon.
Thank you. And yes, I mean, if I can help again at some point, I will certainly help. I mean, that's, I think, the reality of these things. And as I say, I think that people need geological information to make informed decisions. And I think now that is true around the world, not just in the Caribbean, but even in developed countries. Believe me, they get a lot wrong as well.
Thank
And
you.
they don't listen to people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're the strength of my heart, my holy God.
When we come back, we'll talk to Janelle and, of course, Gary about their plans to go forward. The education continues.
It's perfect will.
Together. So the community fed off the pan and fed and cared for the pan and the group of players.
You had 3 women playing steel band. It was Marlene Destouche, Cornelia Prosper, and Pamela Shillingford.
Steel Band Part 3.
It was what was good about pan. It brought people together. They assembled around the pan. But for some reason, our communities, when there's a festival in Point Michel or a festival in Granby, what kind of music do you hear? What kind of instruments do you see? What has happened to Jinping, quadrille and dance in a place even like Granby?
Steel Band Part 3.
You adopt the pan in SMA, you adopt the pan at Convent Grammar School.
That's why pan needs to be in the schools, because it can be used to teach children mathematics. So you can make math a joy for children.
Steel Band Part 3. This Friday, March 30th, Atherton Marte will be joined by pan genius James Gregoire as we look at the way forward for Steel Pan in Dominica on Creole Helmets on Q95 FM from 11 a.m. Steel Pan Part 3.
Pan, in fact, discourages that kind of awful disrespect of the human body by man or woman, and instead replaces it with a sense of belonging, a sense of being cared for, and a sense of learning.
When the wicked shout.
Let me return and, of course, go back to Janelle and Gary, our experts on the ground.
And start to pray.
So, Gary, what you guys have been up to? I know you've been planning many projects. I heard there's some workshop coming up very soon. Tell us a little about that.
Yes, thank you, Matt. I've been getting that question, like just being around city, like people recognize us because of what we're doing, and they'd ask us like, "What's going on? Did you guys win? Have this stuff? Did they find the copper?" Well, what we've been doing over the past few weeks, we understand that Nancy Fountain and others have been standing at the wash consistently for weeks, and we commend them. We've also been there a few days, but what I've also been focused on is educating the public. I mean, we use your medium, the radio station, Facebook, YouTube, but not everybody is listening into this. The same way newspapers are published about it. I've made videos about it, but we need to be on the ground to talk to people.
Okay, one-on-one.
And so we have been invited to community meetings. There are other NGOs within the Kalinago space, one of them called Kupunul, who are organizing community meetings, and we have been invited as guest speakers to talk about the whole Deboash issue, because a lot of people are not as well as informed as we are, because we're so center focused on it that we know all what's going on, but like there's a lot that the public doesn't know. And from these meetings, we found that some people actually know nothing what's going on in Deboash.
True.
Which is very concerning to us, because we're like, is our reach not great enough? And so we need to do more groundwork. And at these meetings,
have you been invited to the national radio to talk about this?
No, we have not.
Any other radio station?
No, we have not. But if they are,
you would accept the invitation.
100%.
Yeah, sure. We have, and they could contact us on our email. We have an email, savedeboash@proton.me. We also have a Facebook and an Instagram page, which is labeled
And they have our numbers.
I just find it strange. This is such a topical subject that any other radio station would find it, the good thing to do to invite you and speak about the issue. It's a national subject.
Yeah, and we're very open to speaking. We've been very transparent.
You'd go on any radio station.
Yeah, and I saw some people in the chat asking like, where could they find the report? You could find the report on our Facebook page. There's links to our drive, which also has the different laws of Dominica, all the different media that's been going on. We've fit everything in that drive. So everybody is welcome to it, to look at it, to come to their own conclusions. But yeah, follow us on Save the Bosch on Facebook or Save the Bosch on Instagram. We will keep you guys updated there. I guess you could follow us on all private socials if you want, because we are also going to be sharing updates, but we really want people to focus on the pages. That's where most of the information will be.
And generally, you're part of that exercise, I know.
Yeah, I want to emphasize something that Gary is saying about the community meetings, and just let people know that when these community meetings are being held, we are not the only ones that are invited to present on the topic. They have also invited the Minister of Environment, who's also the parliamentary representative of the Salabia constituency, to also speak. So it's not just us going around talking. The community has tried to get all parties to come together to have an open discussion with the community, and so far we are the only ones who are showing up.
That's a phone call. Interesting. Hello. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
Maybe the last person. But what make me call so quick, I listen and I digest, and I hope plenty people do like that. And I want to tell them people, the professionals and who you have there, don't wait on the call. Call them, make them embarrassed. Let them do accept it. Call the different station and media, especially the one my tax money I is sending in paying for. Call DBS and invite, extend the invitation. Oh, I can't talk good English. Tell them all they want to come and talk.
And as they said, they would invite. You can invite any environment minister that wants to put, of course, his points forward. But I find it very strange that they will not invite you to partake in such a discuss. Very, very interested.
Yeah, we have tried to invite them and to ask for that discussion, a very open discussion with the community, with the public. And from the time we did the Barna event, we invited the president. She was just returning from Ireland, so I understand, but the minister and so on, and they did not show up.
I wonder why.
Comes whispering my name. I just whisper his name. And the darkness runs away. The Lord is my light. I won't be afraid. He is my salvation. My debt's been paid. When the wicked rise, they stumble and fall. My heart won't tremble. I've heard his call. Who's got your back? The Lord Most High. Who lifts your soul? The Saint Most High. Fear comes near. My faith is mine. Faith is worth. I'll stand my ground. He hides me safe, where no harm can find. In his secret place, peace fills my mind. He lifts my head. Folks, his mercy, Lord, it overflows. Lord is my strength. When trouble comes, I won't lose sight. It's not.
We're going to come back after this break, finally, and wrap up our final break for the afternoon. Stick around, Dominica. This is Q95. This is Talk on the Block.
This Tuesday night, it is our 7th Global UNQ show for 2026, and we continue to engage with our local, regional, and global Q family listeners and friends of Dominica. With me is my co-host, Justice Dr. Irving Andres, social scientist Simeon Joseph, former CSE General Secretary Alvin Thomas, and former Dominica UN Ambassador Crispin Gregoire. This Tuesday night is all about national security and economic interests of small island states like Dominica amidst the Middle East war, global insecurity, Caribbean sanctions, and and trade disruption. So here are some talking points. Is the rules-based global order ushered in at the end of World War II coming to an end with wars in Ukraine and Iran and U.S. military operations in Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, and Ecuador, and suggestions of a U.S. intervention in Cuba? The Monroe Doctrine now replaced by Dunroe in the Western Hemisphere. What does this mean for the Caribbean going forward? How will the war in Iran...
But we just trying to get an update as to the situation before we wrap up our discussion this afternoon there. Because we heard this afternoon there earlier that Nasty Fountain, the reggae superstar, reggae sensation, actually blocked the machine, preventing it from entering the Debosh site there where the mining is taking place. And he's still there. Mastin Edwards at Diaspora there, just visiting Dominica, has decided to join that fight. Mastin, you left there just a minute ago. I think you're going back. What is the situation there when you left? What was the situation?
The situation is pretty much the same, Matt. They are still standing. Naseo and David, his wife. I came into the community. I got two other sisters with me. We went back and we were standing. I just left a minute ago because one of them had to go to work. So I just left a minute ago. But, they are still standing as we speak. I saw Dr. IP, who is heading back up to stand. So, yeah, so they are still standing. A few vehicles came, Chinese vehicles, they went up in the area, so there are a few Chinese persons there. And I'm not sure if any of them have to do with MMC or whoever the persons are, I'm not, I don't know the names of the company persons, who work with them, but a few vehicles were seen going in there. Pretty much the vehicle, which is the heavy duty vehicle, is still parked on the side of the road. And the men are still standing and have decided to stand if it takes that they have to sleep there. So we have concerns about the stop order that was in effect. And notwithstanding the stop order that was in effect, days after the stop order was dated and signed, the Chinese were seen to be working. The Chinese were seen to be still conducting work there. So, they had concerns with that as to why they weren't arrested by the police because of the stop order. Now they have decided to begin. The police came and left. Two different sets of police officers came and left. And the police said that they're not even sure. Some of them are not even sure as to what is going on. But they came and left. So it is left for the authorities to state as to what is the situation, and if work has resumed officially, legally, or not.
But you get the impression that the Naseo will keep standing, yes?
Oh yes, definitely. This is a soldier who is relentless. This is a resilient man, and this is a man who will stand for his country because he knows the value of our land and the sacrifices our ancestors paid for this land that we call our lovely Dominica. So he will stand, and we will continue to stand. He said he will stand with his blood and his sweat and his tears, but he will stand no matter what. He's going to stand.
Thank you, Mastin. Thank you for bringing us up to date of the situation there in the Debosh area. And of course, we're going to have our final comments from our team here, Gary and Janelle. Any final comments before you go? I mean, I'm sure there are other things that you want to talk about. We have not had a chance to, but explore it.
There's a lot we can talk about, and I know we're wrapping up, but I just want to bring up this point, Matt, that, one of the arguments on the other side is that Debosh was previously used for quarry material for Melbourne Hall back in 1970. But what a lot of people don't realize, so where you see the exposed rock by the Debosh Bridge is where they utilize, and what a lot of Dominicans probably were not privy to or do not know about is that the airport Daywash was used for the airport material in 1970. The airport was finished in 1970, resurfacing by a Canadian company. In 1970, a Canadian company also then tried to come to Dominica to mine Daywash. So right when they were using the Daywash material to resurface the Melbourne Hall, a Canadian company tried to come to Dominica to mine that same area in 1970. So this is almost like deja vu. This is happening all over again. So yes, they're saying, okay, they used the basalt from the area. First of all, Melbourne Hall was a lot smaller back then. It required a lot less material, and you still see that exposed rock area that they used. But yeah, in 1970 it happened, and then in the 1990s it happened, and now we're in the 2020s and it's happening all over again. Deja vu. And people are asking, okay, what can we do about it? And I need to remind people that we are the people. We are the Dominican people. The government is here to represent us. The government is here to act on our behalf and for the greater good of us, the people, and this country. And one of the reoccurring themes from all of this is that we need the documents from them to be able to understand what is truly going on and to make an assessment for ourselves as to how safe is this operation, or what is the real intent behind
what is it? What is it that they're hiding?
I don't know, but we are the ones that they answer to. So if we want those documents, it is on us to put pressure on our parliamentary representatives, on our government representatives, our regulatory agencies, to be able to get the answers that we deserve, right? We are the people. We deserve those answers. And we are going to continue until we get the answers that we deserve. We have basic human rights that need to be respected, a right to a healthy environment. We are not going to watch another community go down, because at what point does it stop? At what point?
Will you join Nasio and his team up there sometime? I know you're going to be.
We have been joining. Yeah, we have been joining. We have been doing everything. And I mean, a lot of this is happening behind the scenes. So like we said, again, we have a 3-pronged approach. So we're tackling this through the sciences, we're tackling this through outreach, and we're also tackling this the
I know
legal way.
some of your signs were destroyed. Are you guys putting that out?
We're finding a lot of different creative ways to get the signs in places.
Okay.
For sure. But yeah, and I mean, a message to all our regulatory agencies, y'all are governed by the law, including the police, right? So if something is happening like this, the same way that you would come to us to tell us the law is the same way I hope that you would go to them to tell them the law.
Any final comments, Gary, before you go?
Well said, Janelle. How can I follow up that? What I wanted to also say is that we're asking for the documents, but we also want the documents so we can review it, so then we can have a proper consultation with the developers, with the engineers in charge. It's not.
So you're still prepared to sit with them until now?
Oh yeah. Once we get the documents in hand, we would review it ourselves as well with our team, and then we could have a sit down with the people, the developers.
Any one of them?
Yeah, sure. We're open to it. We've been at their door asking for it, and they haven't been
forthcoming.
No, they have not.
Right.
Yeah.
Folks, we have to wrap it up because of time.
Yeah,
But I hope to see you soon.
Yes.
You're always invited to come here and, of course, discuss.
Yes. There's other things we could have talked about. There's some points that we just don't have enough time to talk about it. But we are.
For example.
Let me just bring it up. Recently, the UN has declared Earth has entered a period of water bankruptcy, and that is likely impossible to reverse. So we're losing freshwater supplies from our aquifers and stuff like that. So water is a very valuable resource, and is getting more valuable every day. And to see what's happening in Daywash could be detrimental to Dominica's water security. We could dive into that, but I don't think we have enough time. But I just wanted to mention it quickly. And on Thursday, we'll actually be in the village of Siniku. We'll we'll be part of a community meeting Cinecoop, and we'll also be presenting what we found. And if there are people who want to talk to us face to face, you can do that. We'll be there in Cinecoop. We're also planning a webinar with the youth on Saturday. And so these are some of the things that just are in place to ensure that everybody's educated on the topic.
Yeah.
All right. Water will become the next, a reason we go to war. That's what
Yeah.
I've been told.
Yeah.
It's the black gold. All right, Dominic, this is how we come to the end of this afternoon's discussion. It's 3:16. The black gold, Dwayne Stevenson.
The time to care. No place to bury the dead and come.
Again, Janelle Gary, thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Side of the people choosing suicide. It's your boy. You have to our destruction. For you no longer care for the people in this land. When it seems you've traded your soul for gold. Yes, it seems you've traded your soul for gold.
I think you've traded your soul for black gold, huh?
In Somalia, we'll go hungry tonight. Millions will cry for a cure, but won't live to see their light. Someone is in need of a home. They will sleep under the stars. While millions for guns and bombs and making trips to Mars. It's your boy. Is this your great vision of democracy? For you no longer care for the people in despair. When it seems you've traded your soul for gold. Yes, it seems you've traded your soul. Legal will come to murder. Why the way we stand and look, nature boy. Vision of democracy, nature boy. Nature boy. You have been by the shore destruction. For you no longer care for the people in the air. Well, it seems you've traded your soul for gold. Oh, it seems you've traded your soul for gold. Yes, it seems you've traded for black gold. Nature boy. I'm sitting in, I'm wondering, when will you turn into my life, making me whole again? 'Cause I'm at the man I used to be when you loved me. And many times, many come and fall to love away. Many people would love to have what we have. But since you've been gone, things are not the same in my nights anymore. 'Cause I can't face the day, don't turn away. It only seemed like yesterday when you tore my heart to pieces. Turn to me, 'cause baby you belong to me, and I will be forever yours. Yeah. Take a chance and love again, though it seems unfair. Just let it to an end. We can say, give us a chance to right the wrong, and we'll be strong again. We can face the storm, whatever this restless world brings. Oh, but since you've been gone, things are not the same in my life anymore. 'Cause I can't face the day, don't turn away. It only seemed like yesterday. It tore my heart to pieces. Turn to me, 'cause baby you belong to me, and I will be forever yours. Yeah, yeah. Well, since you've been gone, things are not the same in my life anymore. 'Cause I can't face the day, don't turn away. It only seemed like yesterday when you tore my heart to pieces. Turn to me, 'cause baby you belong to me, and I will be forever yours. Yeah, 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 yeah.